Welcome to this month's Exploring Quality in Family Childcare. Today we are talking all about process art. And what is so exciting about this topic is that I know many of you who are joining us today have such a wide spectrum of knowledge and experience and preferences regarding art in family childcare. So again, please, as we go throughout the event today, add in your thoughts, your ideas, as you're willing and able, into the chat to engage with other professionals in your field. My name is Grace Eilers, the Family Childcare Content Specialist for Satellite Family Childcare System, and I will be facilitating the event today. Let's begin. We're going to acknowledge where this shows up in Satellite's accreditation standards. So first, in Section 4, Supporting Children's Development, it states that art and other self-expression activities are open-ended and child-directed. In addition to that, the educator doesn't expect children's products to all look the same. So we're going to be talking about that open-ended piece, that child-directed piece, and the expectation that children do not have to create art in any certain way today. This also shows up in the Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards. So under creativity and imagination, the standard for programs states that early care and education programs will provide the environment, the context, and diverse opportunities for children to expand their creativity and imagination. And it even gives some sample strategies for adults. One of which being to have a variety of art materials available all the time for the child to create with. So let children experiment with the materials in any way they like to encourage creative expression. So we will continue to circle back to many of the pieces that have already been covered in those two standards today. One from the Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards in particular is going to be to offer children a variety of materials to experiment with. So here is a question that I encourage you to think about. And if you are willing and able, please provide your answer in the chat. What is your favorite art medium? The medium refers to the material or the technique of creating art. So think, for the purposes of today, we're gonna think visual art medium. So that could be watercolor, it could be tempera paint. You could enjoy clay or ceramics. More broadly, painting in general, drawing, sculpture, collaging, the list goes on and on. What comes to mind for you when you hear this question? And I see many of you have found the chat already. Fantastic. I see stamps, paint mixed with glue. What a fun one, Valentina. And I'm just going to pull out a few of them just to read out loud. And I would encourage all of you to pull up that chat and you can react and respond to others with questions or any sort of comment that you might have. Finger painting, that's what Stephanie says. Clay and stamping from Monica. Couple stamps, I love that. Crochet, Melissa says crochet. Kate Woodford says stickers. Fantastic. So a lot of different ideas, such a wide range of preferences in this group today. And as adults, many of us have learned to think about that end product as it relates to art. So adults were very goal oriented. So if you aren't offering process art already, it will take a shift in your thinking to do so. So as we move forward today, I would encourage you to continue thinking about art opportunities based on the medium. So the material or the technique of creating art rather than that end goal or product that results in creating art. So now we're going to get into it. What is process art? Process art is focused on the process of creation rather than, like we have talked about, that end product, that craft, or that overall goal at the end of it. So that means that process art must be child directed, which means it has to be optional. Because some children, they prefer to create in other ways rather than visual art. So maybe like building or dance or storytelling. And process art is so another way of thinking about it, it's not, well, they can color outside the lines. It's actually, we aren't even giving children lines at all to color within. That is how open and child directed it is. And it looks like what you see in these two images here. The adult provides the materials without an end product in mind or a sample to follow. Those are key. And then the children can then decide how to plan and execute their ideas. And oftentimes, you may not have anything left to save or display at the end of the experience, and that is okay. I think about the child on the right here with the paper towel and the watercolor paint, how you add too much water and the paper towel might begin to dissolve, might not dry very much, and there's really not going to be anything to save, and that is okay. So you may be thinking, well, we're learning about flowers, or I have children who really love flowers, so I want to do an art activity. Yes, I hear you. Let's look through a few examples of ways that process art can be merged with your program's curriculum and your children's interests. So here on the slide here, you see we have two different ways to approach flower art experience. So on the right, this is what we would call more product-oriented art. Children were given an outline of a flower and directions. Yellow goes on the petals, green goes on the stem. There is not a lot of room for creativity and self-expression on this one. And then we have on the left, this is a flower art experience that is more process oriented. The educator provided real flowers and a variety of paint for children to stamp on paper. So some children may decide to, stamp the flower lightly on the paper. Some may take the flower, put it in the paint, and then just smush it as hard as they can onto the paper to see what happens. Some children might take the flower and drag it across the paper. Some may just rip the flower apart and incorporate it into their art that way. Some children might come to you and say, actually, I just want to glue the flower on the paper. And we call those children future artists of realism. But do you see how there are so many different ways that children can now take these materials and create and express themselves? We're going to go over a couple more to see the difference. Here we have dinosaurs. Why not take dinosaur toys that you have in your environment and paint them with washable tempera paint? It would just be really important to preface at the beginning that eventually you're going to wash all the paint off at the end of the day in a big bucket, and we're going to see what happens when we mix all of these colors together. I look at the product-based art on the right, and clearly there was a model for children to follow. You might have teachers who are fixing mistakes that children might make, and I put that in quotes, mistakes that children might make. And there was clearly an end product in mind for this art. So those are two different examples of an approach to dinosaurs in art. Here we have spots and shape exploration. And you can see here the difference in creativity and individuality. It really opens up when you offer children the choice to create in many, many different ways. You might have a child who only wants to paint the bubble wrap that they're going to stamp on the paper. They only want to paint the bubble wrap and save the bubble wrap. You might have some children that only want to use blue. Some children that want to create with so many colors that they mix them all together and it turns brown. And you're going to get a wide variety of pieces that children may or may not want to save at the end of it. And here is our last example of the difference between something that might be more product-based in nature and process-oriented. Tissue paper and glue. So on the right, you see there was, again, clearly a model for children to copy. Or maybe the children did the paper plate and tissue paper portion, and then the educator cut it into a fish. And you may see that many of these crafts look the same. There's not a lot of room for individuality there. And then on the left here, a child clearly decided where and how to glue tissue paper on a piece of paper. Maybe they even discovered that when you add too much glue, the tissue paper begins to dissolve and the color even comes off on your fingers. So again, just a few examples of what process art can look like and how it can be merged with your program's curriculum and your children's interests. And now we're going to watch a video that gives you more ideas and shows you more of what this can look like. Just some more ideas on how you can incorporate and focus on the process of creating art and encouraging creativity in young children in family childcare. For those who are interested, that featured in that video was a Tuff tray. So it's a very, very large tray that can be easily washed out. So if you're into messy art, but you're more hesitant on the mess or how messy it can get, I might suggest getting a larger tray to have children explore and create on. So now that we all have a shared understanding of what process art is, let's talk about why this is so valuable for children and for you and for your program. Number one, it benefits you. If you begin offering process art opportunities to children in your program, there's going to be way less preparation on your end. No more cutting out the materials for a craft, no more making a sample for children to follow. You only have to plan and provide the materials, and children will take it from there. You will also find it emotionally freeing since you are not containing. There's less containment. You're not telling children how to do it in a certain way. You're not helping them go through the steps of creating art. And because of this, you will also find that it is just way more fun. You're going to find more experimentation in your program and science happening and more discovery about the individual children in your program. So their interests, their individuality, their capabilities, and their ideas. And I think that's showcased here on the right. Maria Laura at My Little World, in her program, she offers a wide variety of art materials. So in this in this photo, we see paint and then quite a few different um, sponges and paintbrushes and rollers, and children have the option to just create whatever they please. And what I noticed looking at this image is the image with the large orange animal of some sort in the middle. That child started by using markers or a pen of some sort, drawing a black outline, and then he colored it in with markers. And then he decided, I'm going to paint around it. So when you open up this opportunity for children to create in any way they like, you're going to find that they're going to be using mixed media techniques to create something like this. So now we're going to hear from Trisha Nellen, owner and lead educator of Trisha's Harmony House, which you will find many images from her program throughout our time here today, as well as other other family child care programs, most of which participating in Satellite. I asked her this question: where do all these art ideas come from? And this was her response.
A lot of my kids have been here for many years, so they'll even bring up like, let's not use paintbrushes, let's use pine cones today, because at one point last year we had done that. But so yeah, we do a lot of nature things. Flowers are amazing to paint with, pumpkins, gourds, apples, balls are fun. We did like a blowing straw with paint. That was cool. A lot of the time, these are the kids' ideas. So, I need to get it quickly. And so they stay in tune with their plan and that kind of thing. So I try to have a whole closet of supplies that they may need, which is helpful.
Wow. Yeah, and that's just another added layer when you're not just offering process art, you're listening to what your children are wanting to do
Right.
and
Yeah.
how beautiful that is. And I'm sure that they take a lot of ownership in their own learning that way.
Yeah, they do. Actually, I have two 4-year-old twins that had went to 4K and it was like about a week and they came back and they're like, our teacher only uses paintbrushes at their school. She doesn't know how fun it is to paint with other stuff. So I just thought that was funny because we don't really use paintbrushes, we try to think of other things to use. So I thought that was cute coming from a kid. Like, geez, this school's different.
Yeah. Oh, how validating that is for you and what you're doing too.
Yeah, definitely felt good.
So I'm sure you heard that most of the ideas come from children over time. And which is again, that's emotionally freeing and cognitively freeing for you as the educator. You're handing children the opportunity to come up with their own ideas that they want to then go forth and plan and execute through their art. And now I'm going to ask you, because I know we have a lot of folks here today who are already offering process art and do it quite frequently. Where do your program's art ideas come from? And please feel free, if you're willing and able, to put those answers in the chat. Melissa says Pinterest. I knew that was coming. Pinterest, yep. Kate Woodford says Instagram, Monica Pinterest, and some Facebook groups. A lot of Pinterest. Tammy says the children. Pinterest and Google, Instagram. So lots of focus on those social media sites where people can share their ideas and what they're doing, like Pinterest and Instagram, one for TikTok. Chelsea says, my favorite thing lately is AI. I'll ask process art ideas for 2-year-olds that align with WEMLS, which means Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards. Great idea. So the children, parents, other providers. Alexa says looking at art videos. Laura says inspired by nature. So a lot of different ways that we all get our art ideas. And Shelley says the children's imagination when given some materials to inspire them. Yeah, so I would encourage you, please feel free to continue adding your ideas. That's a perspective that you hold. So we would love if you're willing and able to share it with others in your field and respond to each other so that we can all share all this information that we have together. So we're going to talk more about why process art is so beneficial for children and for your family child care program. So the first is that process art is by nature developmentally inclusive. So when you focus on offering materials and not the expectations about the end product that children are creating, children of all ages and stages can now participate. And you see that in both of these images here. You can have infants, toddlers, preschoolers, and school agers all participating in something that is more process-based. We're going to see it now a video, an example of children engaging in a free art opportunity.
Right.
Look at you.
Say, I made a doggy.
Can I see? You're doing good.
Great.
Yay.
So I'm not sure if you noticed, there were other older children who were drawing just with paper and crayons. And this infant is participating by exploring green paper. So this is process art. It might not look like much, but this is process art. Think about all of the possibilities, all that is happening for this infant. They may, like you saw in the video, crinkle up the paper. They may begin tearing it, feeling the different textures. What happens when I crinkle it up? How does that feel compared to when it wasn't crinkled up? What does it feel like when I tear it on the edge that it was torn from? What does it feel like on my face? Can I walk with it? Oh, not very much. So all of these things might not seem like much to us as adults, but this is developmental inclusion, and this is exciting to that infant. And that infant clearly was curious about exploring that piece of paper. It also nurtures creativity. So let's circle back to this concept highlighted in the Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards. Process open-ended art requires children to think creatively, and they must imagine new possibilities to explore with the art materials that they are provided. So there's also creativity happening when children go through the trial and error of different techniques, methods, and materials. So I think about these two images here, the one on the left. The children were given feathers and modeling clay. And that was it. They had to decide, what am I going to make with this? Do I want to make something, or do I just want to feel it and roll it together and experiment with what colors happen? What colors can I make when I mix different things together? And then we have the children on the right here from Trisha's program. They were either offered natural materials or they went and collected them on their own. And then they had to look at it and think, what am I going to do with this? How can we work together to create something? And to complement this, children are also working on their problem-solving skills when they're engaged in process art, because there are so many decisions and challenges to work through when children are just simply offered art materials and are not told what to make or how to do it. So for the child on the left, this is from Trisha's program, he must persist and troubleshoot if he wants to cover that entire gourd with white paint, he is going to have to think, huh, I want to cover this all with the white paint, but how am I going to fit this paintbrush into all of those grooves and edges? He's going to have to try out different methods, and that is such an important skill when we're thinking about solving problems. I also think about the that process art it might even incorporate cooperation with other children, as you see in the photo on the right here from Sarah's Little's Adventures in Play School. These children must solve the problem. How are we going to work together to create on this one wooden circle that we have? And that ties into all of the fantastic social and emotional skills that we know set children up for success later on in life. Process art also opens opportunities for children to engage in rich conversation and to practice new vocabulary because the idea for what or how they're creating, that's stemming from within the child. So as an adult, as the educator, the educator must extract that information from the child if they want to know more. So for the child's artwork on the left, tell me about your art. And you might even get a story that goes along with it, which then supports children's communication skills. For the child on the right, how did you create this? And this can and also should be done with infants and toddlers. Ask them about their art. Wait for any type of response, whether it's verbal or nonverbal. Maybe they point to different sections of what they're creating. And then you, as the educator, can expand on it, incorporate new vocabulary words, talk about shapes and colors, and then even ask further questions. So it can and should be done with those infants and toddlers, even if children can't necessarily engage in the type of conversation that we think of when we hear the word conversation, that back and forth of speaking to each other. And we're going to see another example of what this can look like, a toddler engaging in process art outdoors in a family childcare program.
Look at that. We got some blue paint. We're painting with blue, Malaya. It's okay. We'll clean it up. It's okay if it falls. It's okay. Yeah, I see you. We got some blue paint. Yeah. Yeah, you see that?
Let's go see and watch and get entertained too.
Yeah, you see that? Look
I need
at
some more
that.
paint. Can I get some more paint?
Yeah, I see you. I'm watching. Yeah, I'm watching. Yes, blue. You got blue paint. I'm watching it. Yeah. Yes, I see that. You got a tree and you got a frog. And he's over here. I have it.
So as you saw in that video, and just generally speaking, infants and toddlers, they are already very process oriented in nature. So not a lot of paint is actually getting on the paper. It is more about experimenting with the art materials. Oh, what happens if I put a lot of paint on this paintbrush? Oh, it's going to drip down. Or what happens when I press harder, if I exert more pressure on the paintbrush when it's on the paper? Oh, look, more paint transfers to it. So there's a lot of experimentation in science happening for infants and toddlers and preschoolers and school agers when they're engaged in process art in this way. So this piece right here, process art provides a form of expression, could arguably be one of the most important aspects of process art. And that is just the idea that children, when offered art materials and the chance to create in any way they please, children can express themselves, their ideas, and their preferences. And this is so significant, in fact, that there is actually now an accepted method of academic qualitative research called arts-based educational research, which is research that focuses on examining children's art. So, this really helps researchers form an understanding of children's experiences because it is a way that children can communicate concepts and ideas that they might not have the language yet to do so. So, just another reason why process art is so beneficial for children and how it can actually tell us as adults a lot about what children are thinking, how they're experiencing the world, and their ideas and their preferences. Whew, all right. So we talked about what process art was, we saw some examples, talked about why this is so important, and we're going to end our time today talking about how to do this. How are you going to do this in a mixed age program that is family child care? First, we're going to hear from Trisha.
Well, art's always available in my program. It's in my kitchen. I have 2 shelves that is filled with stuff and it's never unavailable. So art is a big part of my program.
How do children engage with those art materials in your program that you have out?
Usually drop off is when it starts. And so as soon as they come in, they have an idea and art is usually part of that. So the older kids started off and like today, I think they were doing it for 2 hours. The
Oh,
younger
wow.
ones were doing scissors and the older ones built a big quilt. So
Wow.
yeah,
So it probably gets pretty messy, is what I'm hearing.
it can. Yes, absolutely. But that's part of the fun, right?
Yeah, that is part of the fun. And you have it in your kitchen too. So do you have a tile floor that you can
Yeah,
sweep? Okay.
yeah, it's easy to clean up. And the kids also, there's a vacuum, a little handheld vacuum that they can vacuum it up as well. So they help
Oh, that's
on most days.
wonderful. I just popped in the chat and I saw one question. What materials do you have in your art center at all times? And look at that. You just foreshadowed what we're going to be talking about next. What can be available all the time? So, this is something for you to think about, and everyone will have different answers to this question, and it's based on your individual program, the children in your program, and your own preferences and approaches to art. So, here we just have a couple examples, and then I'm going to turn it over on all of you to answer this question. You can see what Trisha was talking about in the video on the left. That is her art cart. So she puts a lot of different art materials out that children can access at all times throughout the day. And it sounds like they do it quite frequently because it starts right in the morning and it just keeps going all day long. On the right here, we have from Alexis's program just some dot markers to have out for children and some paper. And that can be something that is accessible at all times because it's washable. Other examples, um, markers, crayons, your classics, glue sticks are great. And then also some other maybe materials that you might not think to include in your art center. So those toilet paper rolls, maybe you cut up different pieces of cardboard from all of those delivery boxes that you've been receiving recently, or stencils, tissue paper, watercolor paints. And now I'm going to turn it over to you. What art materials do you offer all the time? And I see we already have some folks adding their suggestions in the chat. Stencils. Bobby Joe says we always have white lined and colored paper, markers, crayons, pencils, dot markers, and stencils. Tammy says tape, pencils, paper, glue, paint, scissors, marker, crayons. Nikki says eyedroppers, watercolors, paper plates, paint chips for cutting, paint sticks. Kate Woodford says tape, scissors, paint sticks. Eden says, besides the basics, I love to offer stamps, stickers, and blank label stickers so they can make their own. Play-Doh, crayons, chalk, construction paper, bubble wrap. And I saw a message from Nikki from before where she stated they incorporate it with science and small motor along with sensory at times. So again, process art is merged with some of those other developmental areas like science and fine motor skills and sensory. Pom-poms, temetope, glue, paint, pom-poms, stencils, scissors, crayons, water paint, construction paper, etc. Fantastic. And continue if you're still writing, please continue to type and send that for others um, to read and react to. Feel free to have your side conversations over here. In a follow-up email to our event today, will be sending even more ideas where you can explore and maybe think about, what can I offer all the time for children to create with? There's another question. This is the flip side. What art opportunities can be offered with supervision? So we have some examples here. We have on the far left from Sarah's Little's Adventures in Play School. Sarah is offering children the opportunity to melt crayons on a hot plate that's turned down to the lowest setting. Aluminum foil is placed over it. And again, probably not something that you're just going to have available all the time for your infants, toddlers, and preschoolers, but what a fun experience with close supervision. In the middle photo here, we have a process art opportunity that Tara at Tykes and Tots Family Childcare is offering. So water and watered down paint and paper with toilet paper rolls. Again, this might not be something that you have out all the time, but you may want to offer with close supervision. And then the photo on the right here, that's from Trisha's program, and she is offering a big group art experience. So yes, probably, this is covering her entire kitchen table. So probably not something you're just going to have out all the time and accessible all the time, but rather this is something that's optional for children to engage with at a time where you can be nearby to supervise. And now you might be wondering, we talked about all those things, where you might be wondering, well, where is it all going to go? And oftentimes, especially with infants and toddlers, as we've already talked about, there's not going to be, an end product that children want to display in the environment. However, it should still always be an option because children need to see themselves in their space. So for programs with very limited wall space, like Maria Laura's program here on the left and the right, hanging, she's hung a line from one wall to the other and then used clothespins to hang up children's artwork if it didn't fit on the wall, which is what is being displayed on the right there. Here we have a trash can. There also might be children who say, nah, I just want to throw it away. And that's fine. Because it's about the process. It's not about the end product that children are creating. So some children are like, I don't really want to save it. And if you do say you want a record of it for documentation purposes, you could just ask the child if you can take a photo of it before they throw it away. So that's another idea. Sometimes they're going to want to display it, and sometimes they're just going to want to throw it away. For those experiences in which there is not really anything that can go anywhere, take photos of the child and display those in the environment. So here is a great example from Kathy's Kids Home Child Care based out of Green Bay. Kathy took photos of children engaged in a very, very messy glue, glitter, cardboard roll, tape, all of the things in a big cardboard box in the sensory bin. And there wasn't really something that children could say, this is mine, and I'm going to put it up on the wall. So she took photos and displayed those photos in the environment, quoting what children were expressing and saying during this experience. This is personally one of my favorite things to see in programs, simply because I have seen firsthand the impact of displaying and updating photos of children frequently within the environment. These images remind children of the experience that they had when they were creating art, and then it motivates them to either talk more about it. So now we're getting into those rich conversations again, or they might say, oh, that was really fun. I'm actually going to go and create more. I've seen it too. This can even be done with, say, you don't want to print out all of these photos or get them developed. You might say, I'm going to get a digital frame and then upload photos of the children and change them out so that I can cycle through those throughout the day in my program. And now I'm going to turn it back on you. Where does art currently go in your program? Do you have any other ideas or similar ideas to what we've already talked about that you feel could be shared with others? Where does art go in your program? I see Bobby Joe says group painting and coloring is so much fun. On the wall, classic. Some goes home, a bulletin board or an art wall. Looks like Rebecca also uses that string on the wall with clothespins to hang. Maria says that she places art on the walls and rotates it weekly. In the hallway, the ceiling in our classroom, they love looking at it when they get up from nap. I have found that offering children the opportunity to place artwork near the place in which they have mealtime can be super beneficial and can spark richer conversations among children and among you as the educator with them about their art. Danielle says, send it home. Bobby Joe, we put it in the entryway on the doors where the kids and parents can see them. So again, I've heard that a couple times. Put it near the entryway where parents and family members are going to see this, and then it can continue that conversation with the child when they get home. They can talk more about their experience creating art. Well, thank you all so much. Please continue to add any other ideas that you might have in the chat as we continue. We are nearing the end. And if you aren't currently offering process art, thinking about what are the small steps that you can take to do so? Because it takes time to do this. What can you offer children? Would you be more comfortable offering something that's more supervised? Maybe like the on the left here from Let the Dragons Fly Family Childcare, Shannon's program, offering something that children are doing together where you have the capacity to be nearby to supervise. Maybe that would feel better for you. Maybe you're just going to start by, if you don't already, always have crayons and, paper and newspaper out for children to explore with. Test it out, and it'll take time. It'll take time for you to find what works best for you, your program, and the children in your program. Also know that there are some children and some groups that they're not really very interested in creating art in this way, and that is okay. What is important is that you, as an educator, you are offering the opportunity to explore visual arts methods and create in many different ways. So you might not have children who are super interested in creating art, and that's okay. And something that I've seen, if you would like to engage children in this, that maybe otherwise wouldn't choose to do so, something that I've seen work really well is just as an educator going to model, oh, I'm going to go draw a picture, or I'm going to go paint something, and sit down to where in your space, wherever those art materials are, and just start modeling that for the children. And that might spark some curiosity, and you might get some children who follow you over there and also engage in some process art with you. We're going to end our time today hearing from Trisha about her own process art journey.
I would do handprints and we would do themes and that kind of thing, 30 years ago. But as I evolved, I realized, that children, they don't need that kind of thing. They have their own ideas. So I definitely like to see that process within myself to be able to realize that kids, they can create their own things. Some kids bring tons of stuff home each day and others don't, and that's okay. And the art will come home if they want to do art at that time. I always try to explain art like as organic, that they'll do it when they want and it's always available at my house. And don't worry about if they're holding the pencil the right way or that kind of thing, because it's a process.
Thank you for all your participation today, for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon during nap time, for allowing us to take up some of this precious time that you have in the middle of your day. We hope this was valuable for you.